Alright, this is the first video for section 5.4. So it goes with pages 1 through 3 of your notes. And it is going to help you on section 5.4 homework questions number 1 through 4. Now you're going to see on your notes that there are a lot more words than you see on my screen here. But what we are talking about in 5.4 is properties of logarithmic functions. And we need to know how to manipulate logarithms and basically do algebra with them. So we're going to look at these 3 rules: the product rule, the quotient rule, and the power rule. And we see the product rule basically means when I multiply 2 things inside of the logarithm, it's going to be the same as adding those 2 things as separate logarithms. And what's pretty cool is that it matches up with the exponential properties. And the exponent rules were kind of prerequisite information for this class, but for instance, if we have an exponent with the same base, let's just call it base x raised to the a, and we want to multiply that with something with an exponent with the same base. We know that in order to do that, we just have to add the exponents together. So this is x raised to the a plus b. So multiplication means addition. Very similar here, but it's kind of backwards as far as since they're inverses. So multiplication in the logarithm means addition for separate logarithms. And similarly for the quotient rule, division is going to mean subtraction. And we see that again if we have the division of exponents with the same base, we know that we subtract those exponents. And as we work with logarithms, we'll also see the power rule. So basically, if something inside of the logarithm has a power, we can move that out to the front and multiply it by the logarithm on the outside. And that's similar to our power rule for exponents, where a power raised to the power, we're just going to multiply. And same thing, the power here is multiplied down to the front. So it's pretty neat how they match up with the exponent rules that we should know. So what we want to do is we want to use these rules. So if you look at page 2 of your notes, we're going to see a couple examples of what I call condensing. And when we condense in logarithms, basically you'll also see this verbiage where that means we want to express as a single logarithm. So we want to go from 2 logarithms down to 1 by using our properties. So this again is just like logarithm algebra. How do I work with them? How do I add them, subtract them, and all those things? So the first thing we notice is that they're both base 2. So we can combine them, just like over here, exponents that have to have the same base. So if we see that the operator here is addition, then we know, if I'm going to flip back to my properties here, then we know that addition, in order to combine addition, we need multiplication. So in order to write my new logarithm, I'm going to have log base 2 of p cubed times q. And so I have condensed those 2 logarithms into one expression. Now hang with me through this lesson because we're just going to be looking at a lot of properties and how to manipulate logarithms, and it might not all totally make sense until we get to solving these things, but we need to know how to work with them first. And if we look at the second one here, log base b of 64 minus log base b of 16, we see that the operator is subtraction. And then if we go back to our properties, we're going to use the quotient rule where subtraction needs division. So this would be log base b of 64 over 16. So the numerator needs to be, the first term needs to be written as the numerator. And we can go ahead and simplify that. 64 over 16 is 4. So we have condensed. We have taken two logarithms and written it as one logarithm. All right, so that's just a few examples of condensing. Now let's look at a couple quick examples of expanding. And give me a second to write this down. This is going to be with page 3 of your notes. So we're going to expand, which means to express as multiple logarithms. And get this written so you can see them. They're going to match exactly what's on your notes there. So then if we have this, we want to take these logarithms, and then in this case this natural log, which we just defined, and break them up into two logarithms. So now we're working backwards. So now we see division, and we know that this division means subtraction. So I can break it up, and notice the numerator is written first and the denominator is written second. And we're just going to keep the same base throughout. So log base t of 8 minus log base t of w. So notice it's real tempting sometimes to write 8 minus w, okay? But that's not writing it as multiple logarithms. We also have to have this secondary logarithm there. So that is breaking it up into two logarithms, or expanding. And then this last one, we see the natural log of x to the 6th. We're going to use our power property by bringing our exponent down to the front. So instead of a single logarithm, I now have 6 times the single logarithm. So that is expressing it as multiple logarithms. Now, these first 4 examples here on page 2 and 3 were pretty simple in the fact that we just use one property at a time. The next 2 or 3 videos, we're going to use multiple properties in a couple different ways. So before you do any homework after number 4, you're going to want to watch those videos so you have an idea of what's going on. But again, this was kind of basic. Remember, in any of these videos, you can watch it again, pause it, get to your homework, try it again before you unpause the video. So use this resource to your advantage.